abilities that you see in somebody that is younger.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I got interested in TOR many years ago as a transplant immunologist and surgeon, and we were actually researching rapamycin, and became fascinated. Back in those days, you had to have, animal studies that showed how lethal it was, and lo and behold, to everybody's surprise, rapamycin, given in the proper doses, these animals were living an incredibly long time. So that's my background in that. But we both really kind of focus on two things that the average person can take home with them, and that is that sugars are bad for the aging pathway, and unfortunately certain amino acids that are more prevalent in animal protein than they are in plant proteins. This is kind of the 1-2 punch. And I grew up in Omaha, Nebraska, in the center of the United States, and a meat capital of America. And so when people say, well, gosh, I really don't want to give up my meats and animal proteins, and I really don't want to give up my sugars, can you say why you think both of those things are probably equal in importance in producing longevity?
In accelerating aging, yeah.
Yes.
In accelerating aging. I probably think that it has to do with reproduction and growth, right? So to grow, you need fairly high levels of both, and to reproduce, you need high levels of both. And you cannot have a baby. It wouldn't make any sense to have a baby if you did not have sufficient. Also because evolutionarily, that would be an enormous investment of energy wasted. So I think that's probably where all of this comes from. You need enough protein reserves, enough sugar reserves, and to face the 9 months to have a baby. But of course, you do it at the sacrifice. Not of course, but probably because there is just not enough energy to go around for everything, and also it wouldn't make sense that you have put so much energy into not aging at all. There is probably no benefit of keeping somebody not aging, or at least we haven't gotten there yet. And so I think it makes perfect sense that now you sacrifice repair and protection for the sake of growth and reproduction. And this is pretty consistent in many different organisms, and I think it's a pretty good. It's very clear, in a cell. And we've done a lot of work, for example, with chemotherapy resistance, and you see it very clearly. If you push the cell, if you starve a system and you reduce the glucose and the proteins, it becomes protected, but it doesn't divide. It sits there. It becomes smaller, usually in size, and it doesn't divide. As soon as you give them the amino acids and the sugar, it becomes larger, and it starts dividing, and it can divide very rapidly, like cancer cells. But when they divide very rapidly, they're very much unprotected, very sensitive.
Yeah, so that brings us